Good evening and thanks for joining the Tuesday's Regional News. We start off with news from Jamaica. Jamaica-born U.S. Air Force Major Andre McDonald was today sentenced to the maximum of 20 years in prison for manslaughter in the February 2019 death of his wife, Andreen McDonald. Andreen was 29 years old at the time she was brutally killed. The sentence was handed down by San Antonio District Court Judge Frank Castro in Bexar County Courtroom in Texas in the United States. The prosecution had asked the judge to sentence McDonald, who is the son of Portland businessman Everton McDonald, to the maximum 20 years. His father, 67, is presently awaiting trial in Jamaica for the murder of his two wives. The younger McDonald was convicted last Friday of the killing of his wife and later mutilating her body. After beating her to death, he set fire to her body. He later used a claw hammer to inflict blows to the corpse. McDonald was credited with just over 2 years already served and will be eligible for parole after serving another 8 years. Following a 2-week trial, a Bexar County jury on Friday shocked trial watchers in finding McDonald not guilty on one count of murder in his wife's death. However, he was found guilty on the lesser charge of manslaughter. The Chinese government has admitted a balloon spotted over Latin America on Friday is from China, but claimed it is intended for civilian use. According to the Foreign Ministry, the aircraft had deviated from its route, having been blown off course. A similar balloon was shot down in U.S. airspace by military jets on Saturday amid allegations that it was being used for surveillance. China has denied accusations of spying, saying it was monitoring the weather. The incident has led to a diplomatic row between Washington and Beijing. On Friday, before fighter jets brought down the balloon at the weekend, U.S. military officials said a second Chinese balloon had been spotted over Latin America. Just Monday, China admitted an aircraft had accidentally entered Latin American and the Caribbean airspace. The airship in question that came from China is of civilian nature and used for a flight test, a Chinese report stated. Further, it noted that China is a responsible country and has always strictly abided by international laws in order to inform and properly deal with all parties concerned without posing any threat to any country. At the weekend, Colombia's Air Force said an object with characteristics similar to those of a balloon had been detected on February 3 in the country's airspace at about 55,000 feet. And we wrap up tonight's regional news by telling you that rescuers raced Tuesday to find survivors in the rubble of thousands of buildings brought down by a 7.8 magnitude earthquake and multiple aftershocks that struck eastern Turkey and neighboring Syria, with the discovery of more bodies, raising the death toll to more than 5,000. Countries around the world dispatched teams to assist in the rescue efforts, and Turkey's Disaster Management Agency said more than 24,400 emergency personnel were on the ground. But with such a wide swath of territory hit by Monday's earthquake and nearly 6,000 buildings confirmed to have collapsed in Turkey alone, their efforts were spread thin. Attempts to reach survivors were also impeded by temperatures below freezing and close to 200 aftershocks, which made the search unstable. One survivor said she could hear her mother's voice beneath the rubble of a collapsed building in the city of Antakya, the capital of Hatay province, but that her and others' efforts to get into the ruins had been futile without any rescue crews and heavy equipment to help. Across Hatay province, just southwest of the earthquake's epicenter, officials say as many as 1,500 buildings were destroyed and many people reported relatives being trapped under the rubble with no aid or rescue teams arriving. In areas where teams worked, occasionally cheers broke out through the night as survivors were brought out of the rubble. More than 7,800 people were rescued across 10 provinces up to Tuesday morning. That's all for the Tuesday's edition of the Regional News. I'm Joel Vogt, back to Alethea.